Mark that, children. Facts alone are wanted in life. Plant nothing else, and root out everything else. The minds of reasoning animals, and that is what you are and what I am, and that is a fact, can be properly formed only by fact. That is the principle on which I bring up my own children. And in this school, you'll be brought up in it too. Stick to facts, sir. That is your charge here. Girl number 20. Who is that girl? I don't know that girl.
Sissy Jupe, sir.
Sissy is not a name. Don't call yourself Sissy. Call yourself Cecilia.
But his father always calls me Sissy, sir. He always did.
Then he has no business to do it. Tell him he mustn't. Who is your father?
He belongs to horse riding, if you please, sir.
We don't know anything of the horse riding here. Don't tell us of that. And tell him there must be no more Sissy. Give me your definition of a horse. Girl number 20, unable to define a horse. Girl number 20, possessed of no facts in reference to one of the commonest of animals. Some boy's definition of a horse. Yours.
Quadruped, graminivorous, 40 teeth, namely 24 grinders, 4 eye teeth and 12 incisors. Sheds coat in spring, and in marshy countries sheds hooves too. Hooves hard and requiring to be shod with iron. A horse, sir.
Cecilia Jupe. Now you know what a horse is.
Yes, sir.
Now, boys and girls, would you paper a room with representations of horses? The answer is no. Do you ever see horses walking up and down the walls of rooms in reality, in fact? Of course no. Why then, you are not to see anywhere what you don't see in fact. This is a new principle, a discovery, a great discovery. Now, if you were proposing to carpet a room, would you use a carpet with a representation of flowers upon it?
Yes.
Girl number 20. So you would use a carpet with representations of flowers upon it. Why would you?
So I'm fond of flowers.
And have people walking over them in heavy boots?
Well, maybe the pictures of what was very pretty and pleasant, sir. And I fancy that
Fancy? You mustn't fancy. That's it. You are never to fancy. You are not to have in any object of use or ornament what would be a contradiction in fact. You do not walk upon flowers in fact. You cannot be allowed to walk upon flowers in carpets. Mr. Machokumzar.
Africa. Name the countries of Central Africa.
Of Senior Changa, and he combines the twin gifts of strength and equilibrium to poise one-handed upon the neck of a wine bottle. Graceful sits on the Venus Lyrae, enchant you as she performs her Tyrian florac upon the back of her trained steed Lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, we bring you wonders from the four corners of the earth. river! There is money to be won by any bold-hearted gentleman of Corktown who is ready to challenge the champion boxer of Bavaria!
Louisa! Thomas! In the name of all idleness and folly, what are you doing here?
We wanted to see what it was like.
This!
Yes.
Thomas, though I have the fact before me, I cannot believe that you could so readily forget all your training and bring your sister to a scene like this.
I brought him, Father. I asked him to come with.
I'm no more pleased to hear that. It makes Thomas no better. And you, Louisa, much worse. What can you both possibly want from this frivolity? Haven't I provided you with a wealth of fascination at home in your schoolroom? What purpose can this idleness serve you?
I'm tired.
Tired? Tired of what?
Everything.
That is too childish of you, Louisa. This is too childish of both of you. What would our friends say if you were seen here? What would Mr. Bounderby say? What would Mr. Bounderby have to say?
It's wise for a man in his prime to stop and look where he stands from time to time, Mrs. Gradgrind. Especially a bachelor. There's so much business to attend to, he's likely to overlook his own condition of life. Indeed, it's good for him to know what year he's at, so that he can size up the advancement in his past against the time it took, and plan his future against the time that's left. And I'm not frightened to put myself on the weighing scales. Weigh me against the opportunity my birth gave me, and then you'll see the tonnage of me.
I'm sure you look in robust health, Mr. Bounderby. I
am now, ma'am. But if you'd seen me on my 10th birthday, you wouldn't have bet a basin of oatmeal that I'd live to stand here now, let alone stand as I do. I was one of the most miserable little wretches ever seen. I was so sickly, so ragged and dirty, you wouldn't have touched me with that pair of tongs. My 10th birthday I spent in a ditch, and that was proper enough since I was born in one.
Oh, I hope 'twas a dry one for your poor mother's sake.
A foot of water in it.
Oh, enough to give a baby a cold.
Cold? I was born with inflammation of the lungs. And as for my poor mother, as you call her, I can tell you nothing about her because I never knew her. She bolted. Left me to my grandmother, and I've known that woman lie in her bed and drink 14 glasses of liquor before breakfast.
Oh.
She kept me in an egg box. You'd like to know how I pulled through it? I wish I could tell you. I was determined, I suppose. Nobody threw me a rope. Schooling, I learned my letters from the names on shops. Learned to tell the time from the steeple clock at St. Giles's under the direction of a drunken cripple. I was vagabond, errand boy, labourer, porter, clerk, chief manager, small partner, Josiah Bounderby of Coketown. And those, madam, are the antecedents and the culmination of Josiah Bounderby. You may force him to swallow boiling fat, but you shall never force him to suppress the facts of his life. Now then, Gradgrind, two young faces in the dumps. What's this?
Father called us at the circus.
An amusement for the illiterate.
Circus? Oh, it's enough to make one regret having had a family at all. I've a great mind to say I wish I hadn't. But then what would you have done, I should like to know? And why aren't you studying? You've got shells and minerals and things instead of circuses.
You've never seen a circus?
No. with my poor head in its present state, it's all I could do to remember the mere names of half the facts you've had to attend to.
I'll be down in a few minutes, Mr. Barnaby. There are things I want to talk to you about. Go to your study.
Tell me what put all this nonsense into your head about circuses. You could have asked me about these strollers. I've seen their kind many times on my travels. How'd you come to learn about them, Louisa?
A girl came to the house yesterday morning. She said she was from the horse riding and she wanted to go to Father's school. She said she tries to go to school, if there is one, whatever town her people are in. Mother called me to speak to the girl because she had such a timid little voice. Mother couldn't properly hear what she was saying. I must go.
Well, that's all right, Louisa. The child made you inquisitive, I can see that. You've vexed your father, that's plain. But I can set this right for you. The spirit of inquiry, your father shall understand that. Now then, Louisa. That's worth a kiss, isn't it?
You can take one, Mr. Barnaby.
Always my pet, aren't you, Louisa?
Mr. Barnaby.
All right, Gradgrind, I have a full answer for you, and you and I are going for a walk. Let's go and have a look at these vagabonds. You have a few questions to ask there, I think.
You'll rub a hole in your face, Lou.
You could cut the piece out with your penknife if you like, Tom. I wouldn't cry.
That girl will have the whole school of the horse riding within a week. You'd best turn her to the right about.
But she did ask to go to my school. That's admirable, isn't it?
You see more good in the world than I do, Gradgrind. I know these sort of people. I've shared gutters and garrets with them. There's much the same spirit in half my hands. They won't buckle down. I hanked for the old idle days of their hand looms, taking their time one day in bed, if you please, and it took their fancy. Now they come begging for a place in my factories. They want my wages, but they won't stomach the discipline of my machines. Hardly a day goes by without I've got some new deputation in my office. Either the hours are too long, or the breakfast time's too short, or I'm not paying enough. When they've money to spend their nights guzzling and conspiring in their thieves' kitchens.
I've received some tabular statements from the Teetotal Society. And they do make very grave reading.
Tabular statements, eh? I've seen more drunkenness than all your tabular statements will show you. I see the hands, and the hands drink. From all your teetotal societies and your Bible Christians and Unitarians and Connection Methodists and Congregationalists and Sandemanian Baptists and all your other denominations, they won't stop the hands drinking, and that's about it. What a bad lot. They want a life of venison and turtle soup with a gold spoon. And I'll tell you this about your denominations, Gradgrind. There's too much singing and ranting in every one of them. That's not what we want from religion. That's your circus and your day off again.
I'm assured they preach industriousness.
It shouldn't need to be argued for.
That is a fact.
If it's argued for today, it can be argued against tomorrow. They're just common working men, half these preachers. It's your wondering and your ifing and butting, Gradgrind. We don't want that from the hands.
True. No wondering.
You're going to learn something. See some pretty stuff here.
Mr. Jupe, Is there a Mr. Jupe here? Oh, Mrs. Jupe, then.
Jupe. Nante.
I'd like to know the whereabouts of a Mr. Jupe. I haven't a great deal of time to wait.
Come along. You see, my friend, we are the kind of people who know the value of time. And you are the kind of people who don't know the value of time.
If you want to cheek us, you pay your hockey at the gate.
This isn't obtrusive, lad.
Oh, we'd have had a young gentleman to meet you if we'd known you was coming.
Stoic, Kidderminster. There's been no Mother Duke for 6 seasons. We haven't seen the clown since this morning. Went off with his bundle, muddy legs with him. That's his dog, just tumbles with him. Took off as soon as he sent the little girl to school.
He was crying with the drink when he went.
Stow it.
A drunkard, is he?
Not for me to say. He's a good clown in his time.
Is the girl here alone, then?
She can choose a mother, father, sister, brother. No one will refuse her here. She'll never believe it of him, but he's cut away and left her.
So he's a rogue and a runaway vagabond. That's what he is in English.
I'm telling your friend what's the fact. If you don't like to hear it, you can clear it off. You give it mouth enough, you do, but give it mouth in your own place. This is our place. You've got a place of your own, I dare say. Have you?
Perhaps so.
What's your business with the girl?
Business beyond you, sir. Who's in charge here? Sleary's horse riding. Is there a Sleary? Where is Sleary?
He's in there.
You be ready for the spring? Here's a new clown and a dog, Mr. Sleary.
Stop it.
Two more times round the ring now. Hold your head up. Show the customers your smile.
Mr. Sleary, sir. Am I addressing Mr. Sleary?
Squire? That's my name. Yourself?
Gradgrind is my name. This is Mr. Bounderby. I came here to inquire of a Mr. Jupe, your clown, I believe. His daughter is at my school. My concern is with her.
What is it be, Squire? Is it be Sherry? Give it a name, Mr. Schoolmaster.
Nothing for me, I thank you.
Mr. Gradgrind, sir, is neither a drinker nor a schoolmaster. He has the mind of 100 schoolmasters. He is a gentleman retired from the hardware business and going in for Parliament. He has established a school based upon his own principles, but you are not to call him a schoolmaster, because there is much, much more to this gentleman than that, sir.
It is the matter of the child's presence at my school that I've come about.
She's to attend no more. We'll have no more of her fancy influence.
Is that your message, Squire? It sounds hasty.
It is hasty. Now, forgive me, Bounderby. I made no decision like that. Mr. Sleary, I feel some involvement with this child. It seems her father sent her to my house and to my school as a preparation for his own desertion. By the look and sound of things, it is desertion, isn't it? His dog with him and his effects.
I wish he hadn't taken his dog. It's an inconvenience to have a dog out of the bills. And yet Minelec would never perform without his master, so it's just as broad as it's long. Is it your intention to do something for the poor girl, Squire?
Carefully, Gradgrind.
I have something to propose to her.
I'm very glad to hear it. Not that I want to be rid of her any more than I want to stand in her way. Excuse my voice, Squire. This little husky to them as is not used to it. But if you've been chilled and heated and chilled and heated in the ring as often as I have, your voice wouldn't have lasted no more than mine.
Fine stuff, this, for a man that's raised himself.
Shall we have the girl here, Squire?
My mind is clear. I see a duty to this child. The one I asked for, but it's here all the same. The child's distressed.
It's an infernal shame upon my soul it is.
Where is he? Hasn't he come back yet? He will, I know he will. He's coming for the 9 Isles.
There's no sign of him yet, Sissy. No news yet.
What's the use of this yet, sir? Tell the girl straight. Let me tell her, since I was run away from before I could talk, let alone being her age. Child, the fact of it is that your father has absconded, and you mustn't expect to see him again as long as you live.
I tell you what, Squire. I suggest you speak plain and short now. And don't give your friend any time to say any more of that kind. They're very good-natured people, my people are. But they're accustomed to be very quick in the movements. And one more ounce of that out of him, and damned if I don't believe they'll pitch you both in the canal.
I'll be practical. Jupe, listen to me. Whether your father is coming back soon or sometime in the future is something none of us knows. The fact is, he is gone now, and some provision must be made for you. I'm willing to take charge of you, to care for you in my home, where I hope you'll make yourself useful, especially to Mrs. Gradgrind, who is ailing, and to educate you. The only conditions I make are that you decide whether to accept my offer now, at once, and that if you come with me, you undertake not to communicate with your friends here. That is the whole of the case from me. Except to remind you that your father appears to have recognized the value of a sound education.
On the other side of the banner, my dear, is this offer from me. You can be apprenticed here, and you know the work. My wife will be a mother to you, and Josephine a sister. I don't pretend to be of the angel breed, and I don't say that I shan't swear an oath or two at you. But I never did a horse or a rider an injury yet, and I don't suppose I shall change my nature at my time of life. That's where I stand.
When Father comes back, I want to know where to find me.
If he comes to me, I shall tell him where you are. And Mr. Gradgrind will have no power to keep you. He knows that. So be it, my dear. My last words to you is this. Stick to the terms of the arrangement. Be obedient to the squire, and forget us. But if, when you are grown up and are married and are well off, you come across any of the horse riding ever, don't be hard on it. Don't be cross with it. People must be amused, squire. They can't always be working nor learning. Make the best of us, not the worst, squire.
Collect your things, Cecilia.
I brought the bottle for Father. He's the 9 Isles to rub him with.
The 9 Isles for hurts in the ring. My people bruise themselves often badly. Let me keep it for your father. He'll want it when he comes back, Sissy.
Gradgrind boy too young to be of use in your office?
He has his education to finish first, Mrs. Sparsit. That boy never knew his good fortune. At his age, I've been forced to make myself of use in a dozen offices and warehouses. Nobody offered me a mile's start, and a hand, and an exchange of one bed of feathers for another just as soft. Paving stone was my bed. But I shouldn't talk to you about paving stones and warehouses, should I? You know nothing about that, do you? When it was paving stones and attics and warehouses for me, it was the opera and Mayfair and lords and honourables and white satin and jewels for you. Wasn't it? Come on, madam, admit it. You were born in the lap of luxury, weren't you?
Certainly, sir, was familiar with the Italian opera at a very early age.
And crack society, weren't you, in tip-top fashion?
Yes, that's true. My own family are Scadgers, but my late husband was a Paula on his mother's side. And he possessed a fraction of your business acumen. I should not now be managing your household for you. I trust you're satisfied, sir.
Coming from the scum of the earth as I do, madam, I'm privileged to have your delicate services here.
I hope I've learned to accommodate myself to life's changes. You seem unusually slow, sir, with your breakfast this morning. Is there something unpalatable?
I can't get this whim of Gradgrind's out of my head. This business of taking in the tumbling girl.
It seems generous of Mr. Gradgrind.
Not the company I'd choose for the little puss.
A little puss. Are you referring to young Miss Gradgrind? I ask because there are two little girls in question.
I'm speaking of Louisa, madam. Louisa.
You're quite another father to little Miss Gradgrind.
Give an example.
Isolate, being solid, will become liquid by receiving a sufficient accession of heat.
What is the name given to this process?
Fusion or liquefaction. I'm tired, Lou.
There's a lot more to do yet, Tom. What is congelation?
Very well, lad.
I missed you going home from work. Did you leave early?
Sometimes we're early, sometimes we're late. You know that. Better we don't walk too much together.
Some must laugh at us for keeping our distance, you know. What sin would it be if we sat together and sang together and prayed together?
Better not to. It can't be.
Aye, to make folk talk, wouldn't it? Even about you. But if some laugh at us, why not let others talk?
It can't be. There might come a time. It's hard to think it can't be.
It's hard as it is. But I take your word as law, and a bright good law it is too. Better than some real ones.
Let the laws be, Stephen. Don't fret about them. Let them be, lad.
Yes, let them be. Let everything be. It's a muddle and that's all.
Always a muddle.
Yes, lass, always a muddle. That's where I stick. I get into a muddle 1,000,000 times, and I never get beyond it.
Good night, dear lad.
Good night, Rachel.
God's mercy. Woman.
Back! Yes, again! And again and again! Yes, why not? And have you sold off again and again and again?
Homogeneous solids dilate equally throughout their volume.
Thomas, explain combustion.
Certain bodies, when surrounded by atmospheric air, being heated to a certain degree, will enter into a chemical combination with the oxygen gas which forms one of the constituents of the atmosphere.
And Louisa, what is the consequence of that combining?
The combination will be attended with a large development of heat, which is accompanied usually by incandescence and flame.
Thus, the gaslight. Excellent, children. Indeed, yes. How satisfying is the possession of fact that disperses any mystery concerning our daily life. For tomorrow, I wish you to learn section 16 from Connection of the Physical Sciences. From the paragraph, the atmosphere is not homogeneous. It appears from analysis that of 100 parts 79 are azotic gas and 21 oxygen, the great source of combustion and animal heat. These proportions are found to be the same at all heights hitherto attained by man. To the paragraph, shellfish, which have the power of producing a vacuum, adhere to the rocks by this pressure of 15 pounds upon every square inch of contact. Thank you, children.
Do you know what I wish, Lou? I wish I could gather all the facts in the world, all the figures, and all the people who found them out. And I wish I could put 1,000 barrels of gunpowder under them and blow the whole lot up. I'm tired of everything. I hate everybody. Except you.
I wish I knew how to talk to you to lighten your mind.
When I go to live with Bounderby, things will change.
Mr. Bounderby thinks just as father thinks.
I know how to manage old Bounderby, though.
How?
Through you. You're his little pet. He'll do anything for you.
Whenever he says anything to me I don't like, I'll only have to say, my sister Lou will be hurt and disappointed in you, Mr. Bounderby.
That'll bring him round.
Blackpool. So, there's just one thing, though. This lady here, Mrs. Sparsit, is a high-born lady. You are not to suppose that because she keeps my house for me, that she has not been very high up the tree, at the top of the tree. So if you have anything to say that shouldn't be said before a born lady, then this lady will leave the room. I ask to see you in private, sir. This is private, Blackpool. Private enough for you. So out with it, lad.
I've come, sir, because I need your advice. I need it bad. I was married on Easter Monday, 19 years since.
Yes, I know about this. I know all my hands, madam. It's my business to know. I know the ones who expect to be set up in a coach and six, and to be fed on turtle soup and venison with a gold spoon.
You hear me out, sir?
I know about you and your wife. She took to drink, gave up working. Sold the furniture, pawned the clothes, and generally played old gooseberry, right?
I was patient with her.
Well, you made a mistake. But I know about this. What do you want with me?
She went from bad to worse, and then worse still. I tried and tried with her. I'd come home and find everything I had in this world vanished not once but 20 times. She'd leave me, but she'd come back and back. I'd walk the streets all night, some of them go home. I've come near to drowning myself off bridge.
Yes,
I paid her to keep away from me. For 5 years I paid her and she stayed away. But last night, she came back.
Was it an unequal marriage in terms of years?
I was 21, she was nearly 20.
I only ask because often unequal ages are the cause of unsatisfactory marriages.
Go on, Blackpool. What's next?
Come to ask you, sir, how I'm to be rid of this woman.
We took her for better or worse, man. You can't be rid of her.
It must be. I've read in papers that great folk are not bonded together as fast as we. They can live asunder and marry again. I want to be free of this woman, and I want to know how.
Free of her?
Sir, if I do her any hurt, there's a law to punish me, isn't there?
There is.
If I desert her, there's a law to punish me.
Of course.
If I marry another, there's a law to punish me.
Of course again.
If I live with her without marrying her, there's a law to punish every innocent child we have.
Yes.
Well, then, in God's name, show me a law to help me.
Well, there is such a law, but it's not for the likes of you. Not at all. Cost you a mint of money.
How much?
Well, you'd have to go to lawyers in chambers, and then you'd have to go to a court of common law, and then you'd have to go to the House of Lords and get an Act of Parliament to enable you to marry again. Might cost you, I suppose, anything between £1,000, £1,500. Could cost you twice that.
There's no other way.
Certainly not.
And it's a muddle. Sooner I'm dead, the better for me.
Don't you call the laws and institutions of your country a muddle, my lad, or you'll find yourself in a real muddle one of these fine mornings. Don't talk about things you don't understand. The only thing you've got to do is to buckle down to your work. What have you got to do with the law? Nothing. You just mind you. I tell you what, Blackpool. I always thought you were one of the steady hands, but from what you've just been saying, it looks to me as if you're taking the wrong road. Are you shocked, madam? You see, you've offended this lady with your unhallowed views. I see traces of the turtle soup and Benson and gold spoon about you. Yes, I do. By the Lord Harry, I do.
Thank you, sir. Good day, sir.
Your young lady fetch me.
You're very satisfied. I get everything wrong, and now I do. There are lots of mistakes. You seem to go by the sound of words, not by their letters. You mean national prosperity, I think, not natural. I expect so. But you're going to withdraw from the school at the end of the month. Won't have to worry about such matters soon. Mr. Gradgrind says I've disappointed him, Miss Louise. He says I'm extremely deficient.
In your facts?
Yes, in my facts, Miss Louise.
My mother will be pleased. You'll be able to give her all your attention in the house. She likes having you about her.
I think so, Miss.
Did your father know so much that he wishes you to be well taught, to
But Mr. Gradgrind said I must never talk about it.
No one hears us. What was he like? Could he read and write?
Well, it was as much as he could do to write. It's more than people in general can do to read his writing. I can read it. When he writes to me, I'll be able to read it. I used to read this book to him.
What was it?
Oh, it was about fairies and the dwarf and the sultan. The old lady used to tell us sultan stories about magic. Mr. Gradgrind said it was all destructive nonsense, miss. But my father loved it. He loved me, Miss Louisa.
Could your mother read?
Don't know. She died when I was very small. She was a dancer.
Why did your father leave you if he loved you, as you say he did?
Only for my good. I understand why he did it. You see, he knew that I'd never leave him. To get schooling and better myself. And he had to travel about country all the time, making people laugh. Only sometimes they wouldn't laugh. Lately they hardly ever laughed. And that made Father sad. When he was alone with me, he used to be all shrunk up. He was scared and trembling. Kept saying he was a helpless, ignorant man.
Tell me how your father left you. Now I've asked so much. You tell me the end of the story.
Well, the night before, when he got back from Boo, he sat a long time, rocking in front of the fire. And he wouldn't speak, although I kept asking him if he'd hurt himself. They all do sometimes. I could see he was crying. Yet the more I asked him, the more he hid his face. Then he shook all over. He took me in his arms and he said, "My darling, my love." That was all.
My darling, my love. My darling, my love.
Yes, miss. Over and over.
My darling, my love.
Why are you staring at the fire?
Think about red flame coming out of cold black coal. And look at the red sparks dropping out of the flame, whitening, dying. Makes me think how short my life will be. How little I can hope to do in it.
Louisa?
You wished to see me, Father?
Louisa. My dear Louisa. Oh. I do wish to speak to you, and I am sure you will listen with attention to what I have to say. You have been so well trained, and you do, I'm happy to say, so much justice to the education you've received that I have perfect confidence in your good sense. You're not impulsive. You're not romantic. You're accustomed to view everything from the strong, dispassionate ground of reason and calculation. From that ground alone, I know you will view and consider what I'm going to communicate.
Yes, Father.
Louisa, my dear, you are the subject of a proposal of marriage. A proposal of marriage, my dear.
I'm listening, Father. I heard when you said it first.
Well, you are even more dispassionate than I expected. Or perhaps you're not altogether unprepared for what I'm going to say.
I can't say that until I hear it. Can I, Father? I wish to hear you state it to me, Father.
Yes, well, that's reasonable, my dear. Very reasonable. Well, in short, I have undertaken to inform you that Mr. Bounderby has watched your progress with great interest and pleasure. And now he offers his hand to you in marriage. That time to which he's so long and with great constancy looked forward is now come. And he has asked me to express his hope that you will consider his offer favorably.
Father, do you think I love Mr. Bounderby?
Well, I really cannot take it upon myself to say.
Do you ask me to love Mr. Bounderby?
It's really very difficult for me to answer that
yes
question.
or no?
Well, the reply depends so much on how we use the expression. Mr. Bounderby does not do you or himself the injustice of pretending anything fanciful or sentimental. Perhaps the expression love is a little misplaced.
What would you advise me to use instead?
I would advise you to consider this question as you've been accustomed to deal with every other, simply as one of tangible fact. Mr. Bounderby is, to use round figures, 50. You are, again in round figures, 20. Very well, there is a disparity in years. But in your means and positions, there is none at all. Quite the contrary. There's a great suitability. Now to deal with that one disparity. Now, I find from the statistics that a large proportion of marriages in England and Wales are between parties of unequal age. And in 3/4 of these instances, it is the bridegroom who is the elder. It appears to me that the obstacle of unequal age all but disappears. So, the fact you have to consider is simply, Mr. Bounderby asks me to marry him. The sole remaining question is, shall I marry him?
Shall I marry him?
Precisely. I have now stated the case, as such cases are usually stated among practical minds. The rest, my dear Louisa, is for you to decide. Are you consulting the chimneys of the Coketown Works, Louisa?
There seems to be nothing there but languid and monotonous smoke. But when the night comes, fire bursts out.
I do not see the application of the remark.
Father, I've often thought that life is very short.
It is, no doubt, my dear. But the calculations of the various life assurance and annuity offices have established the fact that the average duration of human life has increased in recent years.
I'm speaking of my own life.
Well, yours is governed by the same law.
While it lasts, I would wish to do the little I'm fit for.
I haven't asked you one particular question because I thought it unnecessary, but perhaps I ought to ask it. You've never entertained, in secret, the possibility of a proposal from any other man, have you?
How would that happen? Whom have I met? What do I know?
It was merely my duty to ask.
What would I know about tastes and fancies and aspirations and affections? Where would I have met them in someone else? You've kept me safe from them.
I've done what's best for you.
Distraction have I had from problems that could be demonstrated and realities that could be grasped. You've kept me safe. I'm your child. I've never had a child's belief or a child's fear.
My dear Louisa, you abundantly repay my care.
So what does it matter?
Matter? What, my dear?
Nothing. Father, give Mr. Bounderby my answer, word for word, as I say it now. Since Mr. Bounderby likes to take me thus, I'm satisfied to accept his proposal.
That's a sound decision. And you've made me very happy by it. Have you any wish in reference to the date of your marriage?
None, Father. What does it matter?
Oh, yeah. My family and friends, you all know me and what I am and what my lowly extraction was, and you won't expect much of a speech from a rough-made, self-made man who, when he sees a post, says, "That's a post," and when he sees a pump, says, "That's a pump." And it's not to be got to call a post a pump, or a pump a post, or either of them a toothpick. If you wanted a speech today, you should have called upon my friend and father-in-law, Tom Gradgrind. Now he's a member of Parliament. He's your man for speeches, not Josiah Bounderby. 2 hours long, some of them. But as I look around this table today and reflect how little I ever thought of marrying someone like Tom Gradgrind's daughter, when I was a ragged street boy who never washed his face once in a fortnight, and then at the street pump. When I reflect that, I think I have a right to be excused speeches. I feel independent. I hope you like that. If you don't, I can't help it. I've long waited for this day. I've watched the bringing up of Tom Gradgrind's daughter, and I believe that she is worthy of me. At the same time, not to deceive you, I believe that I am worthy of her. I thank you all for your goodwill, and the best wish I can give to the unmarried part of the present company is this. I hope that every bachelor present may find as good a wife as I have found, and every spinster as good a husband. That's Josiah Bounderby of Coketown.
Very jolly brother-in-law, uncommonly jolly. What a girl you are, Lou. Such a first-rate sister.
Shaklee was alone. We can't get on with it. There's nobody else in this country will. Is there? Is there?
Would you like anything, Mr. Scrapwright?
I thought this wedding was one of those subjects I'd never hear the last of. I want nurse to say, please don't touch my right shoulder. There's something running down it all day long.
Would you like some more port?
He really is a great worry to me.
I don't understand, Mrs. Scrapwright.
Whatever am I to call Mr. Bounderby now that he's married to Louisa? I must call him something. It's impossible to be constantly addressing him and never giving him a name. I can't call him Josiah. The name is insupportable to me. Mr. Gradgrind won't hear of Joe. Am I to call my own son-in-law Mr.? Oh, I should be worrying myself morning, noon, and night. What am I to call him?
Mrs. Sparsit, ma'am. We come to a parting of the ways in a domestic sense. I've been deeply obliged that a lady of your station should have attended to my house for me. And I repeat again, you'd be welcome to remain even under our different circumstances.
Dear, no, sir, I could never allow that. Wouldn't be fair to young Miss Gradgrind. Mrs. Bounderby.
In your apartments at my bank, you have your coals and your candles and all the rest of it. And your maid to see to you. And a light porter to protect you. And you'll be what I take the liberty of calling precious comfortable. And if you'll take the same terms as before...
I beg your pardon, sir. You were so good as to promise always to substitute the phrase annual compliment.
Yes, well, call it what you will. The figures to remain the same, and then I see nothing to part us in a business sense.
Mr. Bounderby, you're very considerate. I would rather receive the bread of dependence from your hand than any other, since my descent in society dictates that I must. You have my sincere acknowledgments for past favors, and I fondly hope Miss Gradgrind will be all you desire and deserve, and I wish with all my heart that you will, in all respects, be very happy.
Well, ma'am, I'm obliged to you. I hope I shall be.
Do you, sir? But naturally you do. Of course you do.
Forgotten the plum preserve, Mom?
Thank you, Bitzer. We're well locked up, are we? Fully secured.
Yes, Mom.
Has it been a busy day, Bitzer?
About an average day, Mom.
But too busy to allow you time to see about the inkwells and pens after Mr. Bounderby's board meeting of yesterday evening.
Well, it was quite busy, Mom. I hope you wouldn't mind me doing it while you're at tea. You usually have some questions to ask, Mom. I like to make all my time useful. Twice over when it's possible.
What news have you today? Anything more about this uniting and leaguing among the hands?
There are more meetings planned, I know that much.
I'll have the military in the streets if they pursue their greedy pestering. Mr. Bounderby is fast losing his patience. If he locks them out, it'll surprise me.
I don't understand them. It's their improvidence that keeps them so low. Look at the size of the families they expect to keep.
In the matter of other people's children, Bitzer, are all our clerks continuing to be trustworthy, punctual, industrious?
Mostly, Ma'am. With the usual exception. I regret young Mr. Thomas very much. His ways are not right at all.
Bitzer, did I ask for names?
I'll say an individual, Ma'am. From what I can see, this individual is a dissipated idler. If you'll forgive the term, my lady. He wouldn't be allowed in the bank another minute if it wasn't for a friend and relation at court. He drinks and sports and gambles. And that friend and relation knows it as well as I do. I only hope this friend and relation isn't the one who supplies him with the means of carrying on. Otherwise, Ma'am, you know whose pocket that money must come from. And that would be a pity.
I may say it's a pity, Bitzer. Bitzer? That's a gentleman. Well, I would hazard a gentleman. He's looking up at the window, coming across to the door. It's a gentleman who spends a great deal on his dress. Remove this, Bitzer. Hurry down. I shall receive him.
Right away, Ma'am. Captain Harthouse, Ma'am.
Captain Harthouse?
Ah, I do beg your pardon. Pray excuse me. What an exceedingly odd time this morning. It always as black as this.
Often much blacker, sir. Will you sit down?
You don't sound like a native.
I beg your pardon.
Of the town.
No. It was once my good fortune, before I became a widow, to move in a very different sphere. My husband was a Powler.
Powler? Ah, Powler family. Ah, Captain Jem Harthouse, ma'am.
Jem?
James, if you prefer. You lived here long?
I'm the servant of circumstances, sir. I've adapted to them.
Very laudable.
May I ask your purpose here, sir?
Surely. I have a letter of introduction to Mr. Bunderby. I've got my servant at the railway station looking after the luggage. Great deal of it. I expect to be here some while. I'm in for politics. Yeah. I asked directions to some working fellow who appeared to be covered in some fluff-like substance, which I assumed to be the raw material of the town. Raw material, oh. Very odd. Anyway, the fellow directed me here. Now, I don't suppose Mr. Barnaby actually lives in this bank, does he?
No, sir.
No. Well, here's the letter, ma'am. Perhaps you'll be kind enough to tell me where Mr. Barnaby does live. Do you know if he's at home at present?
He is, sir. I'll send the light porter with it.
How's he there? You've known Mr. Barnaby a long time?
He's been my patron for 7 years.
Ah, quite an eternity. I think he married Gradgrind's daughter, did he not?
He had that honor.
It's my letters from Gradgrind, whom I've had the pleasure of knowing in London. I'm in with his parliamentary party. But I don't need to tell you about changing circumstances, Mrs. Powler, I can tell. Now, because of this damn new parliamentary setup, these other fellows are saddled on the country. One or two of my kind think that we ought to make sure of our representation. In new towns like this, got to have more voices in the Commons. Well, then my people think perhaps we ought to see to it that some of them are ours. We don't want to hand over altogether to the industrial breed, do it? There's Gradgrind and the other hard fact men must think that a few of my kind may charm boats from your little 10-pound red bears. Now, I must say, it all looks far more poor than I'd hoped it might. Now, I've tried most other things that are open to a man. And Mrs. Bounderby's quite a philosopher, I'm told.
She's read a great deal, so I understand, Captain Harthouse.
It was my curiosity, but is the lady so very alarming? Stunning, clever, and absolutely unapproachable. So her father gives her a hard-headed reputation. But then I'm told she's a good deal younger than Mr. Bounderby. What is she? 30? Plus 5?
20, when they married a year ago.
Oh, really, Mom? And her father's comments on her intellect and wisdom prepared me for grim maturity. I'm obliged to you of all things. Pray excuse the intrusion. Your man has any reply for me, I'll be at your turn. Many thanks. Good day.
Noodle!
I suppose you've heard a lot of talk about conditions in our mills. Some of these fancy London publications are full of it, so I hear. We've had such a plague of meddling inspectors lately, it's been a wonder we've got any work done at all. Inspectors for our children, inspectors for our machines, inspectors for our lights, inspectors for our smoke, and inspectors out of business altogether if they're not careful. And then who's to support these grumbling hands and their brats? What they want, the lot of them, is to be fed on turtle soup and Benson with a gold spoon. What's the work like for them, the hands? It's the pleasantest work there is, and it's the lightest work there is, and it's the best paid work there is. More than that, we couldn't improve the mills themselves unless we laid down turkey carpets on the floors. Oh, well, this is all very instructive. You get the facts straight from me. I don't know any other way. You're a man of family. Don't make a mistake of thinking I am. I'm a bit of dirty riffraff. A genuine scrap of ragtag and bobtail. But you and me can shake hands on equal terms, because in this house, I'm just as proud as you are in yours. And that's me. Yes, I can't properly say that I've got a house of my own just now. I've been staying with my brother since I got back from India. No wife, no acres of my own to look over. Been the devil to know what to do with myself. Yes, I thought of going back to Jamaica again. And then my brother put this notion of Parliament to me. We've lost our country boroughs, we may as well make over the towns. That's the feeling. So, here I am in your town, on Gradgrind's nudge. If Tom Gradgrind says you need helping, then there's no argument to it. And now, I'd like to introduce you to Gradgrind's daughter. Lou, this is James Harthouse, who's joined your father's muster roll. Mrs. Bounderby.
Mr. Harthouse.
He'd be your father's colleague for Coketown South before long. Harthouse, you'll notice that my wife is my junior. I don't know what she saw in me, but she must have seen something, otherwise she wouldn't have married me. She's got a gold vault of knowledge, political and every otherwise, so if you want cramming for a political career or anything of that nature, you won't find a better instructor than Lou Bounderby. Oh, I can't imagine a more gravel way of being schooled. If you're in the complimentary line, you won't find much competition here. I don't understand the art of paying compliments. In fact, I despise them. Mr. Bounderby is a noble animal in a comparatively natural state, quite free from the harness in which a hack like myself works.
You respect Mr. Bounderby very much. It's right that he should be respected. So you're going to devote yourself to the service of your country. You're going to show the nation the way out of its difficulties.
Mrs. Barnaby, I don't think so. I shall make no pretense to you. I've seen the way of the world here and there, up and down, and I'm curious to see a bit more. I'm going in with your respected father's opinions because my friends have asked me to.
Have you no opinions of your own?
I haven't the slightest predilection left. I attach not the least importance to any opinions. The result of the varieties of boredom that I've undergone, and the varieties of opinion that I've heard, leaves me with the conviction that one set of ideas will do just as much good or just as much harm as any other set.
You will make a singularly good politician.
A for the stewed eels, bought in the street and ate in the street. That was little Josiah Bounderby's dinner. I was 10 years old before I tasted meat. And that was sure to be horse. I expected it to be horse. Washed down with the water they used for laying the dust. What do you think about that, eh, Harthouse? No water from the dust cart in your upbringing, eh?
No such advantage, sir.
When I was your age, young Tom, I was punctual at my lodgings, but I got no dinner.
When you were my age, you didn't have a wrong balance to get right, and you didn't have to dress for dinner afterwards.
Dress? Dress?
Harthouse, this is my brother, Tom.
Dress for dinner? No dinner to dress for in my house when I was your age. House? No house to have dinner in. But rough as we were, dinner in the yard. We didn't have rough words between family in front of guests.
I don't think you need fear that Mr. Harthouse is so easily embarrassed. If he's to represent us adequately in Parliament, he'll need to observe our ways.
Paul Stevens here.
Oh, Stephen, you know every man here, except Mr. Slackbridge, who's a delegate for our district. And he's come specially tonight to over your case. We asked for him, because you made it hard for us. Every man on this committee has grown up with you, worked with you. We've asked you privately, begged you to join the union. You're the one man in your work who's outside. We've held back, because we know your troubles are more than most men's. But we've a duty to our rules. If we show favour to any man, let him go his own way, where's our strength? We have only one strength, and that's to be united. We've asked Mr. Slackbridge to make one last effort with you. This is his trade. Now he knows your case, Stephen. Listen to him. There's one last chance for you.
Friends and brothers, what I ask you will you say of this working man? Since such I must acknowledge him to be. Acquainted with the grievances and wrongs of you, the bone and marrow of this land, and knowing of your resolve, your noble and majestic unanimity that will make tyrants tremble, what can we think of this man who deserts his post and sells his flag and will not be one of you associated in this fight for freedom? Why will you not come with us? It's your chapel, is it?
Yes.
You think there are no Methodists in our union and in others?
They make their own peace. I have to make mine.
Don't you know there are Methodist lay preachers who are some of the most celebrated men in the miners' unions in Durham and Yorkshire?
I've heard mention of it. Doesn't change my mind. Doesn't change what I think is right according to the teaching.
Why is the same teaching on our side for them and against us for you?
It's a matter of being true to something. There's a right and a wrong. Killing's wrong. And burning a man out, that's wrong. And beating a man. And turning all his friends and lifelong neighbours against him, that's wrong. The unions have done all this and are still doing it. It doesn't change things because you say just look at the bad we struggle against. Life's bad, I know that as well as any man here. What I'm told in chapel is to endure it. And to work for betterment through patience. Not meet bad with bad. I can't join you. I've made a promise. And I've got to hold to it. There's that much about my life which is not a man's way of living at all. I'm made less than a man at work. Like most others I've made friends with. And I'm less than a man in my home, and most of you here know that and why. But I believe this. I think you're wrong. And I've made a promise. I'll not join.
We know of your misfortunes, Stephen, and of your good name.
Men seem to respect you here. Otherwise you wouldn't have been tolerated as long as you have. A number of these men have told me they wish your voice and your honesty were a part of this committee. I'll go further. I'll say you have the merits that would make a leader of many committees. It takes a man to lead men, Blackpool, and these men have seen it in you. So have I. Your name could be on men's lips in more towns than this one.
The stone's been made, man. Don't answer it with tricks. Stephen is known here, and his capacities. It's known what might have been, what can never be known. Stephen, you know what we must do. You understand?
Oh, I know what's in front of me. No working man will speak to me. You'll all turn your backs. I'll be called traitor if I'm spoken to at all. And there are faces here I'd have thought once I could trust my life with. I will ask one thing. It's like when this is put to all men that there'll be someone who will say I shouldn't be allowed to work, and there'll be a call for a turnout unless I'm put out of factory. I'll remind you that you were once my friends. And I'll ask you to use your voices if that call's made. Your word can't stop it. I haven't hope but me work. That's all I've got to live by. And I'll do it solitary.
Good evening, sir. Take glass home before you go. Can I get you anything, sir? Please. Very good of you to guide me. Must be the blackest town in Europe. I'm sure I'd have ended in your canal without you.
Glad to be of service, Mr. Harthouse.
The name's Jem, Tom. Well, you are a piece of caustic, Tom. What a very comical brother-in-law.
Old Bounderby's a ridiculous sort of brother-in-law. Ridiculous old Bounderby.
As old is the word when you see him beside your sister. Well, he's a very fortunate fellow to have such a girl to care for him. Well, what's amusing you?
She never cared for old Bounderby.
Now, that's the past tense, Tom. We're in the present now.
Verb neuter, not to care. Indicative mood, present tense. First person singular, I do not care. Second person singular, thou dost not care. Third person singular, she does not care.
Very quaint. Though you don't mean it.
On my honor. How do you think Lou could care for him? You know our governor. He crammed us both wide with all kinds of dry bones and sawdust. Lou never had a lover. The governor proposed on old Bounderby's behalf. So she took him.
And she gets on so placidly.
Oh, a girl can get on anywhere. And she's not a common sort of girl. She can shut herself up inside herself. She used to say to me she had nothing to fall back on, like girls are supposed to have. Feelings they can trust. Don't see how she can have got over that. Unless living with old Bounderby's taught her to feel against something.
Wake up!
very good cigar, Jim. Good night.
Come to your senses, man. You can be protected. I want to hear about this fellow Slackbridge. He's somewhere in the town, stirring up the people to mutiny. We can have him transported.
I'm as sorry as you are, sir, when the men's leaders are bad. They take those that offer.
They're all scoundrels. And these are the men who are shunning him.
Oh, ma'am, they're not what you call them. Oh, they've not done me a kindness, as I know and feel, but they believe they've done their duty by each other. I've known them all my life. God forbid I shouldn't stand by them with the truth. They're true to one another, even to death. Be poor among them, be sick among them, grieve among them for any of all the many causes that carry grief to a poor man's door. And they'll be tender with you, gentle with you, Christian with you. Be sure of that, ma'am.
If you just favour me with your attention, sir. In short, it's because they're so full of the virtues that they've cut you adrift, is that it?
They're faithful to one another. How it is that what is best in us turns us most to trouble and misfortune, I don't know. I can't think the fault is all with us.
Fault? What do you complain of?
I didn't come here to complain. I came because I was sent for.
What do you people, in a general way, complain of?
Look around the town and see what wealth is being made here, but not by us. We work for you and peace out to live in. Look how we live. Herded and crowded in with no light and no air. Look how the mills is all us working. How they never work us nearer to any distant object, except death. The factory has us when we're children, most to come when you've had all the use out of us. But to finish in the workhouse where men are set apart from wives, and where the feeding and the labour and every hard minute are meant to punish us. And for what? For nothing except for having nothing. Look how it's all grown, bigger and bigger, harder and harder, from generation to generation.
And how do you people propose that this should be set right?
I don't know. It's for them who put over us to repair it. What do they take upon themselves if not to do it?
I'll tell you something towards it at any rate. We'll make an example of half a dozen Slackbridges. We'll have the blackguards indicted for felony and shipped off to a penal colony. Don't tell me we won't, man. I say we will.
Yeah, if you were to take 100 Slackbridges or 10 times 100 and saw them into sacks and throw them in the deepest ocean there is, you'd leave them muddle untouched. I can't tell you what'll better all this. Can't tell you what'll never do it. The strong hand will never do it. Victory and triumph will never do it. Making one side unnaturally awless and forever right, and the other awless and forever wrong, that'll never do it. And letting things alone will never do it. But most of all, rating people like so much power. And regulating them like machinery or figures in a sum as if they're without likes and loves and memories and hopes. Well, that'll never do it. Till God's work is unmade.
Just stop a moment. It's clear to me you're one of those people who's always got a grievance. And you go about sowing it and raising crops. Even your own union, the men who know you best, will have nothing to do with you. Well then, I'll go along with them for a novelty. You best clear out, go elsewhere.
So you know well, if I can't get away with you, I can't get it elsewhere.
What I know. And what you know, you know.
your house, lass. I forgot you'd be here tonight. I need to talk to you.
I heard about the union. I was going to wait for you at the gate tomorrow. We women haven't been instructed, but you know I could never shut my back to you.
No.
Do you feel it bad?
It's not that. I've just seen Mr. Bounderby. He's not Mr. anymore. His work and me have parted. I'll have to go to another town.
Where will you go? When?
I'm to finish the week. Where? I don't know. I'll make it a long journey. I was bound to come to this in the end. It's best I should be away.
But why do you...
You'd be shunned too before long. I can't do that to you.
Are you alone at home?
Yes, I don't know where she is.
I'll come home with you.
We'll take the next opening. God, these people live foul. Pity's a cleaner. You'll remember this night, Lou. We'll try this one. I'll go first.
Will you come in, Mrs. Bounderby? Please sit down. Sir, if you please.
I've come to speak to you because of what passed between you and my husband earlier today.
Ah, yes.
My brother and I had difficulty finding you. He's told you what has happened. I know of your situation. I understand that if my husband will not employ him, then neither will any other mill owner in Coketown. He said something of a promise not to join the union. Was that made to you?
It was made through me, you might say. I encouraged him into the chapel. It became his strength, but now it's been the breaking of him.
We share a faith. It binds us. Other men take what bits of it suits them. I honor it all, as I understand it. There's no blame on you, lass.
What will you do now?
I'll go to another town far enough away where I'm not known.
Will you take this, freely as a gift, to help you?
Very kind. I'll not take a gift as much as that from you. But if I may, I'll take two to borrow it and pay it back later.
Do you have enough?
Lou, before we go, I'd like a quiet word with Blackpool. Something's come into my mind. Let's talk outside.
Yes.
You're very young, Mrs. Bounderby. You have a life in front of you. I hope you have it happy, to fit your kindness. Me and Stephen are getting old. He's tired enough already. We will take this separation very hard. Some say we should have claimed each other's company much closer, a long time ago. There is a love between us. That other way, that's not ours, you understand? There is love.
I believe you.
You'll know our fellow Bitzer again, our light porter at the bank. The one who fetched you to Mr. Bounderby's. You will know him again, won't you?
Yes, sir, I'll know him, yes.
Well, look here. when you leave work overnight between now and Saturday, just spend an hour or so in the street near the bank. Just wait about there, do you understand? No need to approach the door. Just wait about where Bitzer can see you, in case he has a note or a message for you. Do you follow?
Yes, I follow you. I don't quite understand.
You just wait about as I say. If I can do you this service, Bitzer will give you the message. You follow? Yes. Don't forget now. An hour every night, that'll do.
Right, sir. Thanks.
All right, Blackpool, that's all.
Louisa?
If I'd stayed, the men would have taken sides before long. I wouldn't want to be the cause of more bad blood among them. It's a muddle. But I'm lighter of mind than I could have believed.
Heaven be with you.
Heaven thank you and heaven reward you.
And may it bless you in all your wanderings and bring you peace and rest at last.
I'm at peace, Rachel. You've changed me from bad to good. You saved me soul while I'm still alive.
The good is in you,
No. Do you remember a time, one of the worst times, when she was half dying, we thought, in my room? Do you remember that night? I wanted her dead. I thought of murder. But I saw you and your goodness there beside the pain and the temptation. And never again will I think or see anything that angers me. But you'll be there beside it. And I thank God for you.
Thank you, Lily.
Mr. Bounderby's in the sitting room.
Ah, Outhouse, come and get yourself a glass of sherry. How'd the meeting go? Let them know where you stand.
Oh, hardest work I've ever done.
They seem to be taking to you in the town, the word is.
Well, I never thought a town of this size could have as many shopkeepers. House builders and druggists and drapers and bakers and butchers. To say nothing of their wives and giggling daughters. I'm sure I've taken weak tea and bad sherry with the entire list of vouchers 3 times round. Ah, Mrs. Bounderby.
Mr. Harthouse?
Oh, your chosen duty, Outhouse. He's a hard taskmaster.
Duty is a word for their ears. There's no need to pretend it among my friends. It is a tedious game, Barnaby. One man calls himself a philanthropist, another a moralist, and some other reckons he's a human rights man. The only difference between them and me is that I'm prepared to say that it's all so much worthless wordage. But we all know it is.
Quite right. But if the country's got to have all this wordage of yours, and it seems it has for all the profit it all adds up to, it's a good thing that some of it comes from your quarter, since your crowd and mine share the same interests, which are minding the law and the order and the property of the country. That's why I say it's your duty.
Well, call it what you like. But I do know that I'm stuck with it.
I think the town can count itself very fortunate to have someone so well connected who's prepared to look after its interests.
Mr. Harthouse seems to be applying himself admirably to the realities.
Oh, yes, I make no pretense to the nobler intentions.
It seems, Mr. Harthouse, you pursue all your life without pretense. I believe we all should. Nothing is pretended, everything is the better understood.
Why don't you bring your horses down here? Now you're going to settle in with us. There's stabling for a dozen here. Don't want to spend more time in that railway hotel than you have to.
Well, it's very agreeable here. The town does choke a man.
Agreeable? I hope it is. Decent enough accommodation for a self-made man, eh? No, the town's for work. You can't expect trees and flowers and nightingales in a working town. There were a sight too many flowers here for my taste when I took possession. Turned half an acre of them over to cabbages, helped feed the servants. The man I bought this place from, Nickits, his name is, he lost his way in the manufacturing business. He had no sense at all. Flowers and pictures and all the rest of the frills and follies, that's all he was good for. Started life with all the advantages. While I was living in market baskets, he was at Westminster School. Where's that man now? Dribbling on a 5th floor in some dark back street in Antwerp. What do you think of that?
The man overreached himself, did he?
Only to the tune of £200,000. I had to foreclose the mortgage on him. Spent all his money on things like that. I reckon it's a seascape. Nicky says he paid £700 for it. I only leave it up because I can't be bothered to take it down. And I'll tell you plainly, if I ever in the whole course of my life take 7 looks at it, at £100 a look, as much as I shall ever have out of it.
Mrs. Bounderby? I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't startle you. I saw you from the window. Is this a favorite place of yours?
Yes, it is. But you're not intruding.
Good.
I suspect you find us all very dull here.
I hope I've never given the impression that I find your company anything of the kind. I hope I'm not being too direct, but we agree on preferring straightforwardness, don't we?
Of course.
Well, then I'll say that I didn't find you by chance. I was looking for you. Your brother, my young friend Tom. You love him deeply, don't you?
What about Tom?
Well, I think you're concerned about him. Because, let me be frank with you, I think that Tom may be gradually falling into trouble. Gambling? Well, it's no irrevocable offense in a young man of his years. Now, let me be frank with you again. I imagine that there's not much confidence between him and his father.
No.
Nor would I be right in thinking between him and his brother-in-law. Well, then the boy needs help from someone else. Do you know how much he's being pressed for? Has he borrowed from you?
When I married, I found he was already in debt. I had to sell some trinkets to help him. They were gifts from my husband. They didn't matter to me. I got rid of them easily. Since then, I've given him in different sums very nearly all the money I've had. And now he's asked for money and I've none. He's wanted as much as £100 on occasions. I
can't help him anymore.
Well, perhaps too much was suppressed in him before. So now he seizes the chance of pleasure and excitement. I can't blame him for that. But I cannot forgive him for not being more attentive in every word, look, and act of his life to you. He doesn't value your affection enough. Your devotion to him deserves more tenderness and more love. I shall try to correct him of that, along with other advice I shall offer about handling his affairs. But you should not be so much occupied by a young man's callow mistakes, Mrs. Barnaby. Your nature asks for more adult concerns.
Blackbird even, 2 guineas. 2 guineas blackbird cake. 2 cans blackbird. 2 guineas on the track. 2 guineas. 2 on the grade. 2 on the grade.
Ah, Mr. Gradgrind. We have something to settle, haven't we?
Now then, come on. 2 on the yellow, 2 on the green, 2 on the blue, 2 on the blue. Any more bets, gentlemen? Any more bets,
Hello, Jem.
Where have you been?
Nowhere particular. I'd say there was a guilty look about your brother there, wouldn't you, Mrs. Bounderby? Shall we speak a few girls' names and see if we strike a bell? Do you know one with a slashing fortune? Oh, your brother is misanthropical today, as all bored people are now and then.
Is that the problem, Tom?
Then what man of spirit wouldn't be bored half out of his mind by the banking life? All respect your exceptional husband, Mrs. Bounderby, but Tom can't be blamed for what's so natural.
I have to go back to the house. There are things to see to. I know my way, Mr. Harthouse.
Tom! What's the matter? Come on, man. You're in trouble, I can tell. Or you wouldn't speak to your sister like that. Well, tell me about it. It's money. You blame your sister for that?
She could get me out of it if she wanted to.
But you've had money out of her, you dog. You know you have.
I've had some. Where else would I get it? My father's tied me down with his miserable allowance. My mother's never had a penny of her own. And old Bounderby pays me next to nothing. Keeps telling me he could live on tuppence a month at my age. Where else can I get money except from her?
Your sister hasn't got it to give, my dear fella.
But she could get it. I've told you already she didn't marry Bounderby for her own sake. She married him for mine. So why won't she go and get what I want out of him? That's why we're here. She doesn't even have to tell him what she wants it for. She could get whatever she's a mind to out of the man if she'd only coax him a bit. But she's wrecked the whole scheme. There she sits with him like a stone. She's turning him as cold to her as she is to him.
Tom, let me be your banker. How much do you need? Is it 3 figures? Name the sum.
She can help if she wants to. If she'll just deal with him. I wish I'd known you sooner. There's no other man here any use.
Well, ask me about things before you start laying a cash pot next time. I've seen much more of that side of the world than you. Now then, you do something for me. Now, I'm desperately intent on your softening towards your sister. You make yourself a loving and agreeable brother, do you hear? Make the ladies smile again. That's your job. We've bargained then.
A letter for you, Mum.
From my father?
No, he's still in London. It's from Miss Jupe. A man brought it.
Mother? Mother? It's Louisa. Louisa, Mother. Tom is here as well.
Mrs. Gradgrind. Mrs. Bounderby's here. It's Louisa. And Tom. Sissy. Is it morning yet? It's dark. Such a dark night. All the time. It's Louisa. And Tom. Louisa. No. Oh, she's with Mr. Bounderby. Mr. Gradgrind wanted it.
Mother. Do you know me now?
Louisa. Yes. Your father set his heart on it. He ought to know what's right.
Are you in pain, Mother?
I think there's a pain somewhere in the room. But I couldn't positively say that I had got it. Sissy. Oh, you've been such a blessing, dear. Louisa, there's something I must tell you.
Yes.
You know that your father's nearly always away now in London. So I must write to him and ask him about it.
About what, Mother? What is it?
You've learned a great deal, Louisa. You and your brother. Ologies of every sort. Ologies
apologies from morning to night. There's something your father missed out. Or forgot. I don't know what it is. I've often sat with Sissy by me. Oh, Sissy, dear Sissy, and thought about it. I shall never get its name now. But your father may, if I write and ask him about it. I want so much to know what it is. Sissy, give me a pen. I don't know what to call it. But he missed it up. Sissy, give me a pen.
The bank's been robbed. Where's Louisa?
I haven't seen her today.
Louisa? Robbed with a false key. What do you think of that?
A false key?
A false key!
Robbed? What? Well, no. Not of very much, but it might have been.
Ah, of how much? Might I help myself by
Yes. Yet don't stitch yourself. As to how much, if you want a sum, the sum's not so very much, £150, that's how much. But never mind the sum, it's the fact. The bank's robbed, that's the thing to mind. I'm surprised you don't see it.
My dear Barnaby, I do see it. And I'm as overcome as you can possibly wish me to be. However, I hope that I may be allowed to congratulate you, which I do with all my soul, I assure you, on your not having sustained a greater loss.
I'll tell you what, Harthouse, it might have been £20,000.
Yeah, I suppose it might.
By the Lord, you may suppose so. It might have been twice 20.
But, Barnaby, when was this done?
Sometime over the weekend. Could have been yesterday, could have been Saturday. Now, you know that lady?
I've had the honour. No.
Now, she lives at the bank. You know that, too. The main door's kept double locked at night, and the key stays under that lady's pillow. Now, young Bitzer, the life porter man, he sleeps outside the iron room where there's never mind how much. Now, in the small safe in young Tom's room, the safe that's used for the petty cash, there was £150 odd.
154, 7 shillings and 1 penny.
We just have no more of your interruptions. It's enough that I'm robbed while Bitzer's snoring, and probably you as well. What do you think you're there for? You're too comfortable. That's your trouble, Mrs. Sparsit.
Sir, I can honestly say I've never actually heard Bitzer snore. I will say, on winter evenings, when he's fallen asleep on his table, I've heard him what I would prefer to describe as partially choke. I have heard him, on such occasions, produce sounds of a nature similar to what may be sometimes heard in Dutch clocks.
Well, While he was snoring or partially choking or Dutch clocking or whatever else he was doing besides being asleep, someone got to young Tom's safe, forced it open and abstracted the contents. And then that somebody, or those somebodies, we don't know how many, let themselves out by the front door, double-locked it behind them using the false key, and that key was picked up in the street outside the bank at 12 o'clock today. Now, what do you think of that?
Is anybody suspected?
I should just think they were Josiah Bounderby of Corktown's not to be plundered and nobody suspected. What would you say to a hand being in it?
What? Not your old friend Blackpot?
Say Poole instead of Potts, and you got him. I paid him off, didn't I? And 3 days later he bolted, didn't he? And what's in between? Mrs. Sparsit sees him lurking outside the bank after dark. Not one night, but 2.
But that's conjecture, surely.
Oh, yes, I know. These hands are the finest fellows in the world, aren't they? I've heard all that before. They've got the gift of the gab. They only want their rights explaining to the Mrs. Sparsit. What warning did I give that fellow? In your presence, when he came to me seeking to know how he could lay aside the ties of his marriage, did I not then tell him that he'd come to no good?
Assuredly, sir. You gave him that admonition.
You're disturbed, ma'am. And so you should be. You'll stay here a while, ma'am. Recover your nerves.
What is it? What's the matter?
Your husband's been robbed.
You've been waiting up for me. What do you want?
You all right? You look so tired.
Why shouldn't I be tired? I couldn't get away until the mail train. Don't look like that. I needed something to warm me. Hanging about all day and night, answering policemen. I want to go to sleep, Lou.
I have to ask you, Tom. Do you have anything to tell me? If you've ever loved me in your life, and if you've concealed anything from everyone else, tell me. Please.
There's nothing to tell.
Tell me the truth.
What do you want to know?
Tom, please. Is there anything you have to tell me? If you say no more than yes, I shall understand. Just look at me. Tell me.
How can I say yes or no when I don't know what you mean?
Have you ever said anything to anyone at all about that visit we made? To Stephen Blackpool?
Lou, I'm tired. Let me get to sleep.
Tom, I'm so frightened.
Frightened?
Tom, I can save you.
You seem low this morning, Mr. Bounderby.